Welcome back to another episode of Adeptus Paternus. The kids are finally asleep as we are filming. It is daylight savings, and that always throws a monkey wrench in their sleep schedule, as any dad knows. But here we are, and I have a very special guest who you have heard us talk about before, DadMech Bill.
That's right. I'm the poorest financial decision making in the county.
Yep. You have stuck with them through thick and thin and thin and thin and thin. I'm
a tenacious guy. What can I say? I love the lore. I love the models. I love painting them. I have the pin. I bought the dice that I don't use because they're terrible.
They're so pretty though.
They're beautiful, really, but they're useless.
I actually think they're my favorite GW official dice.
They're good. They're very nice looking, but man, can they not roll sixes? They just don't. I've done multiple tests. I'll sit there, I'll roll all 16 of them over and over and over again. I'll be like 1 or 2 sixes out of every single roll.
I mean,
maybe.
You have been doing this now for months? I think at a certain point, we do just have to accept that those dice actually are probably weighted off.
Probably.
It every single. I mean, and if you have actually been testing them yourself, at a certain point, you've probably collected enough data that you should not use those dice except for display.
And that is why I use them as counters.
There you go. I wonder if it's is it some sacrilegious thing to display the cog?
I don't know. I think I just need to bathe them in 10 weight 40 for a couple weeks and then see what happens.
Yeah.
Might work.
Might work.
Know. Yeah. So, where did you want to begin? Do you want to just dive into my crazy list I made of...
this is just going to be a deep dive of the faction top to bottom. We were doing long form, so kick it off.
Well, and that's of course I would be the Admech guy. Nick tells me, hey Bill, want to sit down, talk about Admech? So I start making a bulleted spreadsheet. Go through. I make spreadsheets about how much the army costs. I sat down to make spreadsheets about how my army worked so I could learn the game. I'm that guy. I
think you have to be.
To play Admech. You really do. So
you have to cogitate.
You have to cogitate on your cogitations cogitationally constantly. So I'll just go through my list then. So first up, the lore. I love the lore of the Admech. They are gross, weird, backstabby, nightmarish, cyborg human monstrosities that will betray you eventually.
Yep.
Always. They have no illusions. They don't think they're even the good guys. They just know they're right mathematically. They proved it. And so, have fun getting lobotomized and turned into a servitor. And if you're lucky, we'll put you in an Iron Strider so you get to go fast. Quick rundown. Horus Heresy, Emperor shows up on Mars and says, hey, build me guns. And they went, no. And he said, what if I'm the Omnissiah? And half of Mars said, okay. And the other half went, no. And then they had a civil war in the middle of the Horus Heresy. And half of them ended up, losing and fleeing off with Kelbor Hal was the Forge Lord at the time. And now they're still off in the warp. Supposedly he's still alive. And now here we are. They went from being the Mechanicum to the Adeptus Mechanicus and got absorbed into the Emperor's glow, and now they're just your friendly local weapons merchants.
Yep, the warm yellow light.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just like the shallow end of the pool. I love how unique their models are.
Totally.
Compared to every other faction. I mean, you've got your chonky boy Space Marines, you've got, the Plague Marines and the Death Guard and all them. You've got even the Necrons, all their, scarab looking stuff, Thousand Suns. And then you get to the Admech and you go, this is just Halloween all year long. Everything is skulls and eye sockets replaced with cameras, and that guy has a gun duct taped to his head, and
another one coming out his rear.
Somewhere.
Somewhere.
And so to me personally, it's the epitome of Warhammer. Even before I got into the hobby, I've only been playing for about a year. I've been playing as long as Clint, and he chose an army that wins.
Used to win.
Oh, they're still not terrible. They're still hard to deal with. But when I would walk into the game shop at OP at their old location or any game shop, and I would look at the Warhammer models, the Admech, you know, when they came out, because when was that? Like 2014, I think, is when the line first came out.
When it became an separate
official army.
Yeah, like a full army. Because I mean, before that, you had like sort of Skitarii that was part of Imperial Soup, and you had Engine Seers that were yeah.
Well, the Engine Seer goes all the way back to like the 80s.
The Engine Seer goes all the way back. He was just a model that existed. Yeah.
Yep. So I would see that and I would go, "That's wicked. That's awesome. That box is $45."
Yeah.
For 5 guys.
Yeah, and wasn't that long ago.
Yeah.
It was only $45.
Yeah. Oh, knock the mic. So I appreciate that. To me, it's the most distinctly 40K thing. Like, there's nothing like it in the factions of the game, and there's nothing like it outside, except, as you have pointed out.
Yep. Let's see if I can point to it on the camera.
The Meta Barons.
Right here.
Which I hadn't even heard of until you introduced me to them.
I'm 100% sure that they... I mean, well, first of all, I think Americans in general are less aware of most, French graphic novels than...
I think that's a fair assessment.
People in the UK. Yeah. But they definitely... I mean, like, because they literally have, like, the techno pope and the tech priests, and they're all cyborgs, and so there's definitely like there was some inspiration there. I mean, of course, then they take it to a different place.
And I mean, just getting into it for the Admech, you have like, there's all these different sects of priests, and there's ones that do work with xenotech, and there's ones that want to hunt down and kill everyone that touches it, and then it's all over the place. There's a Forge world for everyone's taste.
Yes,
there really is.
Well, I mean, since you acquired much of my collection, that I actually for a while was very into the idea of playing Admech, and for me, what drew me is that there's, the Imperium is holding on to, like as knowledge is slipping out of its fingers, all this technology that it doesn't really understand how it works. It certainly isn't creating much new stuff.
Oh no, it's against their religion to make new stuff.
Right.
Innovation is heretical.
Yep.
And it's only okay when Belisarius Cawl does it, because he'll eat your soul.
Yeah.
Well, effectively.
And, this idea that, like, which, I mean, was also, comes from, the Isaac Asimov Foundation series. Did you ever read those?
I did not.
It's the iRobot was part of that universe, too.
Right. Yeah.
And there was also an idea of, like, a group of people, like, they took all the scientists and sent them out to a different planet to found like a seed for humanity as like the empire collapses and nobody knows how anything works, and everything is run on like as a religion. I mean, so there is that as well.
Yeah.
But
well, that's basically like they totally stole that.
Yeah, they totally stole that too.
The origin of tech priests is when the dark age of technology happened, the age of strife back before the Horus Heresy, so like the 28th or 29th century. All the robot slaves went crazy and tried killing everyone, and the only people that could stay alive on Mars, where all of Earth's fabrication was happening, lived in underground bunkers, and the only people that could keep them running were the mechanics.
Right.
And they ended up becoming religious figures, and that's where the tech priests
the people
came
who
from.
didn't actually design.
No, they just knew how to keep the lights on.
Yep. And the only way to pass it on without proper documentation is incantations.
It's a holy litany,
Yep. And so what appealed to me about that is, I mean, we're there right now. I will tell you, because I mean, my day job, I write software, and like I work for a company that thankfully we don't use this one. I can't say too much, right? And NDAs and all that. But we had a lot of what is referred to as technical debt. Just really old code that was written like 30 years ago.
Yeah, nobody knows how it works.
Nobody knows. Yeah, and like, I mean, it's a black box. It's like 100,000 lines of uncommented code in a language that like is not used anymore. I mean, you could theoretically spend the time to figure it all out, but you're not going to.
Yeah. Why would you?
And you have to like literally. we had to do all this stuff to get it to work, and like everything had to work in a particular order because it was it was so brittle. And I was like, I'm a tech priest.
Yeah.
I am a tech priest because I have no idea how this whole like thing works. But I know that if I do this stuff in the right order, it will produce the results I want, tomorrow. But I know that actually the crazy thing is, to go on a slight aside, outside of 40K more, I mean, that's basically what like ChatGPT is.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's pretending.
And like literally it's become a whole, new career path where people are like, quote unquote, prompt engineers.
Yeah.
Where it's like, okay, they know how to talk to the machine in a way to kind of mostly get results that they want most of the time. And it is a skill. Like, I mean, I've tried writing prompts and some are better than others. And I guess if after a while you can get even better at coaxing the machine spirit to do the thing that you want.
Totally. But it currently is a skill. And I would say as time goes on, it's going to become less of one. It's going to become more of a cell phone kind of thing. Like,
potentially,
it's a supercomputer. That's your Compy 386 sitting on your computer desk at home. And then in 20 years, it'll go, I just have my little AI running in my pocket that just knows what I need right now.
Potentially.
Yeah, which is kind of a terrifying prospect. But
we digress.
We digress dramatically. So back to the lore. Where did I have here? There's basically no rules for how the organization works because every Forge world is different. Yep. And in all of the books, all of the lore, all of the little diatribes and the codexes, the codex you gave me, the codex I made the mistake of buying, everything you find online, every Forge world, it's like, oh, well, it runs a little different. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. This one's all about Skitarii. This one's all about priests. This one has a group called the Data Tyrants that never gets elaborated at all. But that sounds so cool.
Because it sounded cool. What more do you need?
The Stygian Data Tyrants, I think, is what they were. And it's just like, they just do whatever they want. There's only two characters that matter. It's the Fabricator General, who has some kooky anime name I probably should have looked up. And then Belisarius Call. Yep. Who, love him or hate him, he created the Primaris Marines at the behest of Gilliman. And I call him Willy Wonka of the 40K universe. Yeah. Because
that seems apt.
He just is a goofball at the end of the day. I mean, how many other characters have a pet Necron head to play chess with while they listen to Bach? That's canon. Yeah. That is 100% canon. In Gene Father, go read it. That's how the book goes. That's a thing.
I have to say, those are some of my favorite parts when they like pull like little bits from our era, and like,
relatively speaking, 38,000 years ago was our era. Yeah,
I mean, canonically, the Mona Lisa still exists,
as does the M1911 pistol.
Yeah.
But I mean, Call, he's a goober. He's funny, and some people love him, some people hate him. I think it's just hilarious. You never know what's going to happen when he shows up. I mean, I don't know how much you guys care about spoilers, but
spoiler alert.
Yeah, there you go. Spoiler
I don't know.
alert.
I'll put in a timestamp to skip ahead to if you don't want the spoiler.
So, I mean, the first big book that was just Call's book, which is the great work, ends with him arguing with the Shard of a Catan in front of a Primaris Marine. And the Marine is just sitting there going, what the hell is happening?
Oh, especially because it comes out that, like, that's not even the first time he's done it.
No, it's happened multiple times. He just wants a map that this one has.
Yep.
And he wants a map so that he can navigate to an old Necron homeworld that's stuck in a time bubble.
Yep.
Because lore makes sense.
And because he thinks it's funny to then, like, have it teleport across the galaxy to like wreak havoc among a bunch of Necrons.
Points it at a star in a dead galaxy that is undefended, and says, "You can go eat that, or you can stand here and get obliterated by my ship's reactor exploding. Your choice." And meanwhile, what is his name? He's the Triarch of Sotha. It's Felix Decimus is sitting there just like, what is going on? I'm standing next to a 20-foot tall space marine. There's also that. There's Alpha Primus, who is all the Space Marines.
Yep.
You know, he's like some fan fiction super Space Marine. He has
Mary
all
Sue.
the gene seeds, including the missing ones. And his gene seed got sucked out in Gene Father, and it's Fabulous Bill shows up. Fabius Bile. He shows up, and plot happens, and he gets all the gene seeds, and then they fly off to the Pariah Nexus while he's playing chess with his 10,000-year-old dead best friend that he's been resurrecting ever since he got killed in the Horus Heresy. And that's
actually really touching.
He really loves that guy.
Yeah.
And
it's genuine.
Yeah, Quo is the guy's name, who for some reason doesn't have a model, because it would be just this horrible monstrosity.
I mean,
but neither does Alpha Primus, because he should technically. I mean, he's like almost Primarch level, but
the scale's all wrong anyway. I mean, how are 12 dudes fitting in a repulsor, and
I don't know. Why can't the Sidonian Scatros stand in a Dune Rider?
Why can't scarabs go through walls when fully grown men
Cataphren breachers crank?
Yeah, So don't ask questions.
That's fun. That actually leads me to my next point that really stands out in the lore to me about the Admech. They have no regard for human life and the sanctity of it at all. You will be made into a servitor if you do not comply. They take the servitor concept, which is like, lobotomized robot brain slave. They crank it up. They're just like, you know what? How about this? How about we take the really obedient servitors and we put them in our AT-STs from Star Wars as brake controllers?
Yep.
That's literally all they do. They don't guide it. The machine auto guides. It's an auto gyro that can navigate any terrain. No, that guy is basically so that when you squeeze the handle, it stops.
Yeah, because we need half a brain for that.
Yes, because computers are not allowed,
right.
Supposedly. Cataphren breachers and Cataphren destroyers. This one I learned from reading through the 9th edition book.
Yeah.
They are murderers and serial killers from the prisons of Mars.
Yep.
That are then tortured into subservience, and their arms and legs are removed, and then they're lobotomized, juiced up, and strapped into a half-track. And a gun is zip tied to their side, and then they just point them at things, because
makes perfect sense.
Otherwise they aren't killy enough.
No, yeah,
I guess. Cerberus, the dogs, right? The Cerberus Sulfurhands and what is it? The Cerberus Raiders. Yeah,
the robotic furries.
The robotic dogs are servitors.
The dogs are servitors.
The dogs
that's right.
are servitors.
That's why they're furries.
They're human brains in dog cyborg body monster things. That are then bonded to a Skitarii. Yeah. And it's
I guess the centipede, right?
The centipede?
Like that movie where that was
the human centipede.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that a little bit.
Yeah.
Even the ammunition, waste not, want not. Skitarii Vanguard are so irradiated, and the inside of a dune crawler is so irradiated that the crew eventually melts. When they melt, I joked about this with another Admech player, they milk the goo out of the dune crawler, and they then turn that into bullets for the radium carbines. Because it's so irradiated that the goo that the guys are made of, or that they end up as, gets turned into bullets.
I think that has to tie with, like the orc teleporter gun, which literally shoots grots into things through the warp. Yeah, so the model actually displays this, where it's one end of the gun is a vacuum, and it's a warp vacuum because it sends them through the warp.
Kind of like the shock jumper.
Yeah, basically. But they suck up the grot, and then they teleport it into the middle of something, and laws of physics, right? Can't have a
vacuum cannot exist. It always collapses.
Yep. Well, you can't have superimposition like that at that scale, and so things just kind of blow up from the inside because they're
free grot.
Yep. And the grot's alive while this is happening, right?
Well, yeah, of course.
Up until the moment they re-enter from the warp,
they've come back to our reality.
Yeah. But I actually think that the radium goo is worse.
That's pretty bad. Being servitorized is pretty bad. I mean, just the Skitarii in general, they're in the lore, they're all over the place. I think there's 4 different ways I've come across you can become a Skitarii.
Yeah.
And number 1 is voluntarily. And that's like you're, a citizen on Mars and you decide to join the Skitarii Corps.
Sure.
Second is involuntarily, which is you're pressed into service. Third is you are clone vatted. Mm-hmm. So there's like clone vat Skitarii, which would explain why they hit on a 4+. And
why didn't they clone the better ones?
I don't know, man. I just work here. So then the 4th one is they're pseudo-voluntary. So this was only mentioned in the Forges of Mars, which you recommended to me, and I picked up. They are Imperial guardsmen that have had to have limbs removed and undergone so much cybernetic augmentation that it makes more sense for them to just join the Skitarii ranks.
Yep.
Because then they get all the better gear. It's like, okay, cool. You got your legs blown off when your Hydra got flipped over. Well,
here's a strength 4 gun instead of a strength 3 gun. And you get an invul.
And you want to run 85 miles per hour?
Okay, here's one thing that I actually wish GW had done differently in their modeling, which is if you look at the Rust Stalkers, their knees bend in the direction that our knees bend, which is wrong for bipedal creatures that want to go really fast. Look at ostriches.
But that's also why they have the extra long final member.
But still, like, I mean, come on, you're a physicist.
Yeah, they're constructed like dogs instead of like humans.
Yeah, but they should have the knees backwards so that they can have more, tension.
I get what you're saying. Yeah. Well, that actually just reminds me. And speaking of waste not, want not, do you know how Sicarian is made?
They put a bunch of dudes together, right?
No.
When
a Skitarii dies in combat, but the spinal column and brain are still intact.
Oh, right,
They
right.
reanimate them and they put them into a Sicarian body, either Infiltrator or Rust Stalker. The ones that are able to speak and can have coherent thoughts become Infiltrators. The ones that are just bloodthirsty, death-mad killing machines, we hand them a couple pair of, devastating, vibrating blades and hide them in walls.
Yep. That makes sense.
Yeah, and another lovely lore bit in the book Skitarius, they have to tell the Rust Stalkers to stop killing things because they're killing so many servitors on a forge world they're invading that they don't have the means to deal with the dead bodies. So they have to give the order. Haldron 44 Stroika says, stop killing things next to base. Go away and kill things. And
you're making them stop littering.
You're causing problems and you're not solving them. Which, that brings me to my final point in the lore, is Admech lose in all of their books.
Yeah, I don't know why that is.
At best, they have a Pyrrhic victory. Yeah. Which is just like everyone lost.
Yeah.
But, like, I mean, the Forges of Mars trilogy is a Pyrrhic victory, ultimately. Spoilers. But, if they lose in all their books, you already know that. Skitarius, your character you're following, he ends up getting captured and tortured by Iron Warriors. Even the sequel to it, Tech Priest, they end up having to detonate the entire Forge world, and they flee, and they lost a Forge world in the process, and now they're all Heretic. It's just like, why can't you guys catch a break? Yeah, I mean, the great work, Belisarius Call, he turns on a what do they call it, where they're rebuilding the atmosphere, but it's going to take like 3,000 years.
I thought he said it was 100.
He says a lot of things.
Yeah, right. He technically won, and he's Admech, so that they technically won that one.
Technically, but I call it Pyrrhic because he basically lost what was left of that division of Space Marines to the Gene Stealers.
Spoilers, I mean, that...
Yeah.
Yeah. Spoilers, if you don't want spoilers, I guess don't listen.
Yeah, well, you can wait till the models section, which is just depressing, not spoilery.
Yeah. No,
I guess I would still err on Pyrrhic victory just because it's kind of like he got what he wanted. Call got what he wanted, and everyone else kind of walked away mostly, but then the Gene Stealers still pulled off their stunt. You don't know if their patriarch is still lurking around down there. Supposedly they killed it.
No, I mean, the whole planet got
Yeah, it already got wiped.
I think it got like double exterminatus.
Yep.
At that point,
it got wiped by Tyranids, not Terminids. I'm playing too much Helldivers. Tyranids, and then it got exterminatus after that because of the Gene Stealer cult still trying to spread out and do their nonsense.
Yeah. And then they went back and they did it again.
Yeah, exactly.
Because sometimes it,
doesn't stick.
Yeah, you got to do it twice to get into the deep recesses.
Yeah, let's see. And then what else? I just started going through Brutal Cunning. I'm only halfway through that one. It's great, but again, it's like, okay, so the Adeptus Mechanicus Forge World of Hephaestus has the best Skitarii in the galaxy. We create the best war machines. We saw an orc fleet up in orbit, so we just let it land. Because I guess the plot had to happen.
No,
No orbital defenses, no ships to sally up and open fire. There's one passing sentence where they say, our defensive ships retreated into the asteroid field.
Yeah.
And then they're like, oh, and then the orcs landed. Begin book. Like, why? Why don't they have orbital defenses?
I mean, CF France in World War II. I don't know what to tell you. No, seriously, like everybody, like when Hitler gave the command to invade France, all his generals said it was crazy. They thought for sure that they were gonna lose,
get wrecked.
But the French decided not to fight. So
but that's that wasn't a
for reasons because the plot had to happen.
Yeah, exactly. That wasn't a Forge World of the best Skitarii in the galaxy. Yeah,
at the time, I mean, France was considered to have the best military in Europe until they didn't.
To go off on a tangent, that was also a demoralized generation after World War One.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
We're back.
All right.
Anyway.
Yeah. So
where were we?
We were complaining about how the Admech lose in all their books, and got off on a tangent about
France. I mean, I would be total again, French comic inspiration for Admech. So I think I'm going to keep going with this whole thing that like Admech is France.
It's totally possible.
Yeah. That like they have a ton of bureaucracy that doesn't work.
Surprisingly religious.
Surprisingly, yeah, but like in weird ways.
Yes, of course, in their own unique way.
They have allies who they hate.
They're constantly trying to undermine at all times.
Yes. Every time they cut a deal, they're willing to backstab their allies. Let's see. Their language just sounds like screeching.
Yeah.
No, that one's a bit further, but
well, I don't know. I say it sounds more like you have a mouthful of bubble gum, personally. But,
sure. But okay, they speak a different language.
They do. Yeah.
From the rest of their allies.
Yes.
What else? I don't know. I can't think of a.
They got that drip.
Yeah, sure.
Serious fashion sense.
Absolutely.
Everyone always talks about Paris.
Capes.
Yeah. Oh, capes. Capes for days. Capes and cloaks and hoods.
Yep. Yeah. All the bling. Man, those models have a lot of bling.
Okay, so that is a great segue.
There we go.
Into the models. I have roughly, I counted them out. I have almost 200 Adeptus Mechanicus models at this point, and I've only been playing and collecting for a year.
Sure.
And my favorite sentence at Warhammer Preview back in, it would have been May, was two of the Warhammer guys sat there and with no hint of sarcasm said, the Adeptus Mechanicus is totally not a horde army. And I put that in my notes as totally not a horde army and other lies from Games Workshop.
Absolutely.
Because we're supposed to be a super elite shooting army.
Yep.
We don't do that.
Nope.
We're okay shooting. Everything hits on a 4-up until you stand still for a turn in the right doctrine of standing next to the right captain, and it gets real goofy real fast. And we didn't even get that until June. But that's a rules thing. That's a rules thing. I was talking about the models. These are far and away the spindliest, most intricate models in the entire lineup.
Yeah, and by consistency.
I mean,
like you might have, like every faction will probably have at least one box that is spindly or more difficult. Like, okay, Necrons have flayed ones, the Edward Scissorhands.
Right. But a full box of a competitive unit, the Sicarian Ruststalkers, which you need to buy 2 boxes of to get a full blob of 10. We'll get to the price in a minute. The captain, if you look at the captain alone, he has his 2 extra arms that have blades on them. He has a claw in his right hand. He has another hand that is holding a sword. He has a computer up in front of him on his left side, and he has an alien xenomorph-style tentacle with a spike on it wrapped around him. This is a regular unit. This is just a guy.
Yeah.
This isn't a named character. This is Sicarian Ruststalker 3. He's the Princeps.
Yep.
Yeah, and I mean, like the Taraxi. Everyone always looks at I broke one yesterday. We did an RTT yesterday. Great time. I break at least one Taraxi every RTT. They're all super glued, and you can tell which ones are because they're squatted down a little bit. They break all their bits. All the tech priests, they'll have all their tendrils and everything. I have 3 tech priest manipuli, and it's because it's manipuli, not manipulus when it's plural. Yeah, because it's like an octopus. He's got tendrils. He's got.
If I can interject,
go for it.
Actually, because octopus, the origin is Greek, and so therefore the plural should be octopodes.
You know what? I'm gonna start calling them. These are my tech priest manipulotus.
No, but manipulus actually is Latin.
True.
So
whatever.
Here, linguistics book. Yeah.
I'm just a physicist. I'm not an English assist.
That's all right.
Yeah. So the Belisarius call model.
Yeah.
We had one of our guys complaining about it today.
Yep. I sold it to him.
I call it the Rubicon Belisarius because every Admech player has to cross it, and it's this big, huge model. It's like 60 pieces for the tiniest thing, and he's our only set piece model.
Yep.
Everything else is just standard infantry or just characters.
And God help you if you don't pay attention to the instructions and you build something slightly out of order.
Oh my goodness, yes. Or if you drop it at a tournament like I did.
Oh man.
Somehow he still has all his bits. Yeah. But the other crazy thing, and this goes back to the first point, you will need to buy a surprising amount of these models. It's not a horde army, right?
Sure.
But in order to make your army work correctly, you're going to be needing to run, 3 to 5 units of Skitarii because of how their army rule works.
Yep.
So that's right there. That's 50 models.
Yep.
And they come in boxes of 10.
At least there's that.
At least there's that. And that's actually one of the better points per dollar models in the list. But you need to buy 2 boxes of Ruststalkers. Like I said, you need to buy 2 boxes of Sicarian, or the Sicarian boxes, the Ruststalkers and Infiltrators are a shared kit. The Taraxi. You want a blob of 10? You have to buy 2 boxes. You want, you want to run squads of chickens. Ooh, the Iron Striders.
Oh, yeah.
They only come in boxes of 1, 1 at a time, and
they
so
can be units of 3. They can build 3 different units.
Units of 3, and this is I have a spreadsheet which I'm sure if you want to we can splash it up here.
Sure.
As of 10/28/24, I went through and I priced out every single model in the Adeptus Mechanicus, how many points it's worth in game, both variants, just to be complete about it. The average points per dollar that you get, 1.45 points per dollar across the entire lineup. Yep,
that's bad.
Yeah, it's not good.
That's pretty bad.
Yeah, and and if you want to play the guy who just took 17th at the French Open, his list of, what is it? It was 40 total Sicarians, 40 birds, only 2 boxes of Skitarii, and then 1 Marshal. He didn't have any vehicles. I thought that was interesting. But even that list, he had Iron Striders in it, of course.
Yeah,
he had 9 Iron Striders. It was a $1,500 list.
Yep. Yeah,
at the top tier of play.
Yeah,
that's what you got to do for this army.
Well, the other thing is, you also did start I think after there was a very good Christmas box, like in 2020.
Oh, the Annihilation box where it came with 6 of the Castellans and.
No,
about the other one.
The other one.
The other one that came with the Dominus and a bunch of Breachers and all that.
It had a Chicken Walker, and then it basically had a mix of everything. But it was one of those boxes that you could theoretically buy 3 of.
Oh, the Omnissiah's Talon.
The Omnissiah's Talon.
I did buy that box.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. I bought the one they had at OP.
Ah, yeah. Should have bought 3 of them.
They only had one. It was out of make by the time I got into it.
Yeah, I basically sold you the other one.
Yeah. And
actually, I gifted you a chicken walker
just
once.
one, yeah. When I had my tooth removed.
Yeah, because I felt so bad for you. I'm like, this will make you feel better.
Yeah. It did. And it's one of my most capable models.
That particular one?
Yes. I kept
We'll say
track.
that anytime that you roll a 6, it was that one.
Yeah, exactly. That's I'll make a note there. So then carrying on with the models.
Carrying on?
Yes. Transporting and storing these damn things. Oh, God. I mean, you've seen my boxes.
Yeah,
I have
a lot of boxes.
I have 4 boxes for a 2,000 point army. And it still leaks out of them. I have an Onager Dune crawler sitting on top, magnetized.
Yeah, that was clever though.
It works.
It works.
But I like all the Taraxi, their bases are weighted and magnetized so that they sit on the shingle. Everything else has little, washers and magnets on the bottom, so it all sits in place. I've got movement trays.
Yep.
And things still break.
Oh,
every single tournament.
Yeah.
I'll get there like, oh, cool. Another Taraxi broke.
I mean, I do think that is something that applies to all armies, though. I mean, I have to
Right.
fix something off of the Silent King, though he is one of my spindlier models.
Right, but he's also one of 12 models you bring to a tournament.
I'll have to do some math, some quick math. My list has changed slightly since.
Well, yeah, now you got the Tesseract vault. So
yeah, which is also a friggin' pain. It doesn't. I would need a box like 2 feet tall if I wanted to carry it on its flight stand.
Yeah, it's like bringing a Titan.
It's bigger. It is the biggest plastic model that they make.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fun.
And it is quite spindly.
Yeah. Well, that carries in incredible level of detail on these spindly little models. And if you love modeling, this is a great army for it.
Yeah.
If you love modeling, painting, details, going through, doing things like me, like different colors segmented armor on each Skitarii. So their leg plates have mixed silver and brass, and their Curiouses all have the cogs all painted. If you love that, do it. If you don't.
Yeah. No, well, I mean, some of those things you can definitely, you can make battle ready fairly quickly if you want to.
Some of them, yeah.
Yeah. But definitely, some of these, you're like, holy cow. You could easily use, 80 different colors.
Oh, one squad of Skitarii.
Yeah.
I can go through, because if you kit them out, because you have all the war gear.
Right. Yeah.
So you have 5 different weapon profiles, 6 if you include the supercharge, plus war gear options for the Omnispecs or the data tether. You have, depending on how you do it, it's either the Vanguard or the Rangers. They all use the exact same bodies, which is nice, but their guns are all super detailed.
Yep.
They have different weapons. They have a plasma weapon, a giant sniper rifle, and a arc rifle, all of which you can do different effects on. The radium guys, if you really want to, you can give them a green glow under the collar, since they're going to be bullets soon. You can give the Rangers the more hooded effect. I mean, sure. I had Cyrus, he picked up my models and went, "You painted the insides of their coats?" And I went, "Yeah, what else am I supposed to do?"
I mean,
you can do the 2 different tones. You're supposed to do the Martian red and cream. That's the classic Martian color, but there's a Forge World for everyone. So mine are little green men from Mars with purple and green trim. So like I said, it's a great hobbyist army. And like you said, you can totally spend, you can sit down and have 30 different pots of paint open for one squad of Skitarii.
Yeah. I
mean, easily.
I think, because the range is one of the newer ranges.
Yes.
And it also, they went in a direction that leads that way. I mean, the only other army that I can think of off the top of my head that I think competes in terms of the intricacy of detail would have to be Sisters.
Mm-hmm. Oh, with all the stained glass?
Well, and then all the reliquaries and all that stuff.
Yeah. So if you love the detail, Admech is awesome. I mean, just look up the Belisarius Call model or throw them up here or whatever you want to do. It's a great model, but you're going to spend a week and a half painting that thing if you want to do a good job. If you want to just slap some primer on it and just call it battle ready, then it's your money. So for some people, I've had a lot of people walk up because I have 100 Skitarii. As you've sold me most of them. I had a lot of them prior to that. I'm also the crazy person that painted, 40 of them in 2 weeks? Yeah.
I think it was less than 2 weeks. I think it was a week.
Something like that.
I mean, because like it was before the Bay Area opened.
That's right.
And you're like, I have this crazy idea. I just need a bunch more Skitarii.
Yes.
I have a bunch more.
Yep.
You built and painted them. And
yeah.
Actually, to make it even
you'd assembled
worse,
some of them wrong.
I hadn't assembled them wrong. I assembled them correctly for 9th edition.
That's right. So I had to correct it.
So
for 10th.
I saved all the bits.
Yep.
Because for those of you who only just started playing in 10th edition, in 9th edition, you had to pay extra for your war gear, and basically all the weapons that the Skitarii had, only, if I remember correctly, like it was either the Arc or the Plasma that was the only one that was like halfway decent, and wasn't worth paying for the rest of them.
For the Arquebus and
for the Arquebus, the Arquebus was like totally not worth paying for, because it was like 10 extra points and it did nothing.
Most of the time, yeah. It's a 60-inch range gun in 9th edition.
True. But it also, heavy back then meant that you were -1 to hit when you moved, as opposed to now you just get +1 to hit when you,
Right.
So you actually found, you tracked down, I guess when you build enough Skitarii, it becomes a bit easier.
Yeah, I was
but
lucky
you rebuilt
my baby
all
and
of
wife
that.
were out of town.
Yeah, all that from the extra bits in the box. And I was very impressed.
Well, I had my own bits too. So it took some doing.
But you still had to figure out which ones went where.
There was a lot of examining, a lot of things. But yeah, that was a fun time. And then I was at a hotel in Paso Robles painting the Dune Crawler before.
I remember.
Yeah, that was a good time. So that leads into the next thing, which chasing the meta with this army. Not only, if you want to chase the meta with an army, this is not the one to do it with.
No.
Because not only are the models, hard to get painted and assembled unless you're an absolute psychopath like me. But for example, the meta list right now, for our okay-ish
As
army.
of time of recording.
As of time of recording. And I'm basing this off the guy, I don't know his name. He took, like I said, 17th at the French Open. He had 40 Taraxi in his list. If you were to buy that MSRP, that's exactly $500 of models.
Yep.
For 620 points.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a little over a quarter of your army, converts to 1.24 points per dollar.
Sound investment.
Chasing the meta with Admech is a terrible idea. Well, it just is not financially responsible.
Well, the other thing is, it's not like certain factions. Like, I've been collecting Necrons for such a long time that I don't have to worry about that.
Right.
If something drastically changes, I might have to buy a box, but often I don't, because Necrons have been around for decades, and so I have them, and also that means that there's a lot of secondhand stuff that you can easily pick up, and Admech is not that old. Now they're getting older.
It's a 10-year-old army.
Yeah, but it's
old enough that when I played the original Space Marine, you were on a Forge world, and there was not a single Adeptus Mechanicus character.
Yeah.
Because they didn't exist.
No. But it is harder to come across those deals. And also probably you haven't, most players probably haven't been doing it long enough to do, but also the other thing is the Admech has come about at a time when things did shift to being like, this is just one cheap thing, like a chicken walker, one single Iron Strider in a box, and
right.
But that is like at full price.
Yes.
Whereas an Eldari War Walker is one thing in a box, but it's like half the price. And
oh no, each chicken, as of recording, $62.50 per chicken, and the meta list runs 9.
Yeah.
What? And you can only buy them one at a time.
How many?
I have bits? 6 of them.
Yeah, I know. How many bits is it also for one single Iron Strider?
Oh, I want to say they're like
80,
somewhere in that ballpark.
Yeah.
So I haven't looked too closely.
You build and paint as fast as anybody I know, and it still takes you 3 days
minimum.
Faster
with the airbrush now, but
sure.
Yeah.
But and that's 3 days of uninterrupted. I only have one kid who sleeps really well. Not
she goes to bed at 7.
Yep.
And I do what I want for the rest of the night.
Yeah, enjoy it while you can before the second one arrives.
So 6 weeks.
That to me, that I mean, like obviously the money is a thing, but I'm just like the idea, the time is
I'm just gonna start proxying things at this point.
Mind blowing. Where like I had a list that I needed to get painted, and like I all of a sudden I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna go in a completely different direction. I had this idea, and so I needed to paint 1,000 points in 2 weeks, but it was only 4 models.
Oh, well.
And 3 of them were large, flat surfaces, basically.
Oh yeah, that was the croissants.
The croissants, yes. The doom size. I could, I could paint those. I literally painted them in like a half hour each.
Yeah. Well, they're Necrons. It's like, okay, cool.
Old
You
Necrons.
do your base, you do your highlights.
The Silent King took a long time.
He's got a little bit more going on.
Yeah.
So,
anyway.
Yeah, well, and that's my final point on the models is a quote I came up with that I'm proud of. The Adeptus Mechanicus is a thinking man's bankruptcy note. That just sums it up, you know. Yep. You're working on a higher level, but you're making low-level mistakes. It's just, it is what it is.
Yep, penny wise, pound foolish.
Yeah, exactly. Very foolish.
But you know, you could. I think that you could be someone who, like many people, have sort of incomplete collections of many armies, or you could be someone who has a very complete collection of Admech.
Yeah, well, you know, I get a couple Archaeopters, and I'm almost done.
Okay, those. I mean, they're super cool looking, but yeah, I wouldn't bother.
They're terrible.
Terrible. And you want another thing that's hard to transport.
Oh, well.
That's got to be the worst.
It's beautiful, but it's useless.
Yeah.
Maybe that should be the tagline. Well, actually, going into actually playing the game then.
Yes.
So speaking of, bad rules and not fielding something, playing the game. This army can be summarized as it worked on paper.
Yeah.
It really, really is, the epitome of it is, it's complicated, but it's not complex. I think is the best way to put it. There's all these layers of things happening that ultimately result in, cool, so this unit gets to re-roll. That's how it works out.
There's so many restrictions.
It's so goofy. So back when I used to play World of Warcraft, they described the priest class as a tough cookie when it came to figuring out where it landed in the rules.
Sure.
And I think, hilariously enough, I used to play a priest. Hilariously enough, the Adeptus Mechanicus lands right in that same pocket of there's armies that are better at what we do, but it's our only thing we do. But there's also armies that are, better at the things we can also kind of do. So we're this weird kind of nebulous jack of all trades, master of none. But in order for us to accomplish any of those, that's why I say we're, a very complicated army.
And every time they try and fix it, they just make it more complicated.
Yes. So stepping back a little bit, just for perspective, we are the 3rd least played Codex Complete army in the game. Second, if you exclude the Imperial Agents, which I would, because who in their right mind is going to play an army of a bunch of rogue traders?
More people than you would expect.
Well, an order of magnitude less than play Admech.
Yeah.
And so if you look at the win rates, it's the 4th lowest win rate in the entire game at the moment, which neither of those numbers are anything to really be proud of or write home about. But that also means, eventually something will get retuned in the right direction. But, going back to what I was saying, complicated, not complex, and identity crisis, I think is a really good way to put it. It's very much an identity crisis army where we're a gun line, supposedly. But in order for us to become a gun line, we have to sacrifice our mobility when we're also a high mobility army. But we don't have the tankiness to sacrifice the mobility. So then we just end up being a glass gun line with low levels of shots.
Incentivized to not move. It's very counterintuitive. And so I wrote a little flow chart down here. Where is it? Okay, my 1-turn flow chart. At the start of the game, you have to, at the beginning of the battle round as well, which is mind-numbing,
you have to declare your doctrina imperative. You're either on the offensive or on the defensive. Meaning at the beginning of the battle round, regardless of if you go first or second, you have to tell your opponent what you're planning to do.
Yep.
That's great. Next up, you have to decide what canticles Belisarius Cawl will be using if he's in your army. You have 3 to pick from.
Yep.
If you're running the Rad Bombardment detachment, you have to do your Rad Bombardment phase. Then, if you have any Castellan robots in your army, you have to establish their protocols. Then, you have any abilities that may trigger or activate, such as cleansing battle shocks from Skitarii Marshals, or any other little nonsense things. Technically, at the beginning of the phase, you're supposed to declare if you're using your 4-up invuln from the Manipulus. The Dominus has his data spike. That's when that's supposed to resolve, I think, if I read it right. It's either then or at the start of the fight phase.
And don't ask me.
Yeah. Then you have auras that all overlap from certain units. So Cawl has his reroll 1's aura, and then you have your Rad Saturation aura that affects during the command phase, because that's how you calculate OC to see if you hold a point or not. And then you have enhancements. You have things like, your reactive moves and whatnot. Any little weird things that'll trigger. There's a couple things in the Data Psalm and the Explorer that you can trigger at this time, like regenerating a CP or things like that. Then you have any buffs that you choose to do and your strats that'll resolve. So in Rad Zone Cohort at the top of your command phase, you have a strat for bombing additional points. And then you have the regular game on top of all of this. This is just the uniquely Admech stuff. Why?
I mean, because it does kind of fit the
it does
the archetype of like a self-defeating.
It does. So like that's why I say it's just like our lore. We lose. Because we go through all these crazy steps, and it's like, okay, what did you do all of this for? You did this all so that your Taraxi sterilizers are standing next to a squad of Skitarii, which means they get to reroll wounds on an objective.
Yep.
At the end of the day.
And hopefully your opponent doesn't know how your rules work, and so they put something important there as opposed to something unimportant. Exactly. Which, like, literally, it felt like when I listened to, I was listening to a well-versed Admech player describe one of the advantages of Admech, playing Admech, is it felt like the most, damning with faint praise, that, well, nobody has ever played any reps into Admech, so they just will lose because they don't know what you can do. I'm like, well, that's...
Yeah, it's like playing against Gene Stealers. Like not enough people play Gene Stealers. No, seriously,
that one is like, you better... Gene Stealer cult would be the easiest army to cheat with, because it's like you have so many models that are just sitting on the side of the board. It's like, well, which ones are dead? Which ones are alive? I don't know. I hope you're telling the truth.
You can just make stuff up at that point.
You can just make stuff up at that point.
And like the guys around here, you guys all know my army at this point, so I can't get away with that.
No. But like, I when you play on a, like, if you're playing at like a big event where it's just like table after table after table, you have no space. No. And so like there are models that like aren't even off the table because there's no room for them, because they have like a horde too. And then, it's at least you don't bring like Skitarii back from the dead. That would be annoying.
I mean, Sicarians are already brought back from the dead.
No, but I mean like in the game.
Yeah. Oh no, that would be fun. I have the fun uppy downy. Yeah. Which that's that kind of goes back to the identity crisis of this is supposed to be an esoteric and weird army, but it's not. It's just an almost guard army with more steps a lot of the time. Well, I mean, like, just my favorite go-to example is Tempestus Scions. Tempestus Scions are ridiculously good, and they've only gotten better over the course of the edition, and that's just with their index. And now they've got their, their Scion Aquilon, the Aquilon team, which is just nasty. But in order for us to even be anywhere near that level with what are supposed to be, and they're priced similarly, hilariously enough, with our Battle Line Skitarii, it's like, we have to jump through so many hoops to make that happen. Yeah. To just do what they do passively. And it's like...
Well, that's the thing. Like, I mean, it's one thing if you jump through all the hoops and you line up every single pin and you knock them all down and you get this like mega damage, right? Like, like Thousand Suns, where if they can line everything up, they do mega damage.
Yeah.
You line everything up and you do normal damage.
Right, exactly. And that's
if
what
you
we have
don't
to do.
line everything up, you don't do normal. Like,
we don't do anything.
Where, like,
effectively.
I mean, Necrons is like, oh, I just have my data sheet, my gun is good. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm hitting you on 2s
right
already, natively.
Oh, we'll get to my experience with Necrons yesterday.
Yes.
It was a good time. It was a mathematically difficult time for the Adeptus Mechanicus. So just to get through my notes, it's a gunline army in a melee edition.
Arguable.
Dealing with melee armies is sometimes impossible.
You should have the tools, but they don't make the tools good enough. I mean, your melee stuff is not good enough to be worth taking to help you there.
No. And I mean, when you're in your gun line, like, hey, I'm holding still imperative, you get -1 to be hit in melee if you're within 6 inches of Skitarii battle line units. That's cool. Doesn't end up affecting anything. You're being attacked 60 times by a blob of 10 Khorne berserkers.
Yeah,
like statistically it's irrelevant.
Sure.
And you have your invuln saves, which again, it's like, okay, of those 60 attacks, 2/3 of them got through still anyway, and then you saved 1/3 of them on your invuln. No, you're 10 wounds. They're gone.
Yeah.
Goodbye. Thank you and good night.
I mean, that is definitely a challenge across the board.
Right. Yeah. And that's like, I played against CSM enough times where I'm going, great. So all that happened here was because of strats, abilities, enhancements, everything that synergizes really well into the one thing you guys are meant to do, which is get in your face and bludgeon you to death. You're able to like clear the entire board. Like on one charge, like, okay, cool. You're on the other side of the board and now you're in my gun line messing everything up. And I effectively couldn't do anything about it because, when you staged up, I dumped 3 units into you guys. You all have 4 up invulns. I'm shooting you with AP 1 or 2 weapons at best. Cool. I'm bumping your invulns. I did like 3 damage. Guess I'll die. And that's with like the best shooting that you can muster with this army. The guardsman in red, I think, is a very, very apropos description. So yeah, your 5 up invulnerable saves they're helpful. Don't get me wrong. It's great, but it's also like great. So the entire army is oriented around the Skitarii as like your Wi-Fi hotspots. And so once your enemy realizes this, all they do is just target your Skitarii, and then they know they've completely hamstrung your army. Because you lose all your AP bonuses, you lose your -1 to hit bonuses. If you're in the Rad Zone core, you lose your double dip strat bonus. You lose a bunch of stuff with a super easy to kill unit.
Yeah, the fact that there's only 10.
Yeah, 10 wounds. I'm going, it sucks. It's the linchpin, and that's all you got. And
especially as time of recording, like orcs and GSC got a big buff, and a bunch of the like really durable stuff got a little nerfed, and so I think people are starting to take more anti-chaff stuff, which doesn't help you.
No, it doesn't, because at the end of the day, only 10 wounds need to get through.
I know,
which is not that many for some armies to pull off.
Nope.
Yeah, it's hard, and it's my note here is glass cannons hold the cannon. Yeah, and basically everything is T4 or lower. There's, I think, 5 data sheets
of your infantry.
Yeah, all the infantry is tier 4 or lower. I guess technically the cataphrons are tier 9 or 7 depending or toughness 9 or 7 depending which one you're in. The breachers are toughness 9, the destroyers are toughness 7. But again, you take a squad of 6 breachers, and that's a quarter of your army right there. It's 290 points, and then you have to add a tech priest to make it worth anything.
Cataphrons are T9.
Cataphron. The breachers
are T9, and they're infantry keyword, right?
They're infantry keyword.
Okay, you know what? For so long, I've been trying to muster up an example of a T9 infantry.
Yeah, there you go. They're T9 infantry. They have a 6 up invuln. Base save 3.
Yeah.
They have 3 wounds apiece.
Because I forget what it was, but there was something like some profile was anti-infantry 5 up, and I'm like, that's so useless. You'd only need that if you were facing T9 infantry.
Which is
oh,
out there.
now I found him. Okay,
Yeah,
good to know.
Yeah, it's out there.
All right, I'm going to take whatever that enhancement was.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, so it's just going off everything we're saying. It's a very high skill ceiling army, is what I've come to realize. It's like you said a couple weeks ago. It's Warhammer on hard mode.
If I had to pick the highest skill ceiling, or well, highest level of skill expression, it would be Admech. Like,
here I am, my first army.
Yeah.
Great move.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think of it as it's the Titanfall 2 of the armies. It's you have to be fast, you have to be careful, and if you're not, everything falls apart and you die. The end.
Yep. Be
Game
perfect
over.
or else.
Be perfect or die. That's all you got. The Wi-Fi army, I already said that. Here's a fun one. This is what I've come to realize playing this army. I know how every single keyword, every single ability, like I've had to learn all the hedge rules and everything because I have all of them.
Yep.
I have ignores cover. I have fly keywords. I have anti keywords. I have dev wounds. I have precision. I have every single keyword. I think
except grenades.
Well, we have one unit that has grenades, and it's the Taraxi Skystalker. The only unit that has grenades.
It's so funny.
But what's funny is in Brutal Cunning, they have a kind of a lore tidbit about why Admech doesn't use grenades.
I think I forgot this part.
They are too random and imperfect in the eyes of the Omnissiah.
But they could use they use
bombs.
Exactly. What, like rad saturation is
alpha particles, they go wherever they want.
Yeah,
man.
that's pretty random, man. Definition
it's pretty
of random.
Yeah, and so just that's our one of a kind unit in the army, the only unit with grenades. It's the Taraxi Skystalker, but we have a couple of one-of-a-kind rules, which kind of leans into the esotericness of the army, which I appreciate. Call, for example, is the only character in the entire game that can at will become battle line.
Yep, pretty cool.
I've never used it. It is very hedge case because he's always parked right next to battle line anyway, so that he gets his buffs.
Exactly. So
it's kind of like, this is neat, unnecessary. It gives.
He's also always going to be your warlord, so it's not like you could secret. Oh, but you don't have to. You could somehow zip him across the table to get to your opponent's DZ to get the battle.
How?
I mean, I suppose because he's also lone up if he's within 3 of something, right?
Yeah. So you'd have to scrounge him across the edge of the board.
I am losing by 1 point, but if I could make him battle line and raise banners on that objective,
yeah. You could do that, but at that point, if you're running the Skitari Hunter cohort, because I did this in one of my games yesterday, I scored 20 clutch points at the end because I had a squad of 5, at the end of my opponent's last fight phase, just brought him back up, destroyed all of his battle line, and then dropped him in his backfield. Cool.
There you go.
There's my 20 points. Have a nice day.
What else? I mean, okay, I'm trying to think about this now. What else can you do with him as battle line? Well, there are those...
All the canticles, or not the canticles, the...
what do you have to do to make him battle? Do you have to
Imperatives.
turn something off? Do you have to choose if he's...
So he gets his 3 canticles.
Sure.
You are in the Invocation of Machine Vengeance, which allows you to reroll 1s with anything 6 inches away from him. Mm-hmm. You can do the battle line one. I don't remember what it's called because I never use it. He becomes battle line, and he gives everything within 6 inches of him a +1 leadership bonus.
Sure.
Or the Shroud Psalm, where he gives everything within 6 inches of him the benefit of cover.
Yeah.
So there's one amazing one, and then one okay one, and then one that is an extreme hedge case. I will only use this in very unusual and unique circumstances one.
I mean, maybe... Oh, wait, no, because you have to choose... No, you choose at the beginning of the battle round or in your command phase?
It's the battle round. Last I checked. I double checked it.
That makes it worse because I'm there might be a case where it's okay, I need him to do an action and I need to advance to do the action, and I'm in the mission where I can advance an action if I'm battle line.
Right.
But if it's the beginning of the battle round, then you won't even necessarily know.
No.
Okay.
A lot of these problems would be fixed by changing it to during your command phase.
Yeah, tell that to orcs too.
Yeah. Having to declare wa, and then you go second.
Yep.
All right, cool. I'm just going to hide.
Yep.
The other unique one of a kind that I haven't encountered anywhere else, kind of with the scarabs, but not quite the same way. Vanguard just reduce enemy OC.
Yeah, that is actually a sick rule.
It's awesome, assuming they don't just go, I really need to kill that unit of 10 wounds that's really squishy at T3.
But, often it's too late, right? Because, if you use it to just deny them scoring the primary, even if you don't score the primary,
it can sway things. It can. It's, again, they're so squishy, and if they're close enough for the rule to work, they're just going to charge you. You have to be 3 inches away.
Yeah.
And it doesn't work on monsters and vehicles. It only works on infantry or mounted, I guess, as a result of that.
Yeah. Though monsters and vehicles don't have a ton of OC anyway.
Typically not.
Unless it's Chaos Knights or something.
Yeah. Well, Knights. So, getting on to the math. This is another one of my little segments. All of our guns are casino cannons. Mm-hmm. Which fits with the lore, but sucks to play.
Yeah. Because
there is just no reliability on anything. Sometimes you do, 24 damage and you just take out a Rogel Dorn in one volley. Sometimes you roll 3 ones twice in a row and it just don't matter. And so the Eradication Beamer was the one that I mathed out just as an example. And this is the stock kit. When you click add on a Dragoon Crawler, it comes with the Eradication Beamer. It's 2d3 attacks, and this is with the near profile. So it has to be 18 inches away, because it's either, I believe it's 18 or 36. So it's half range. You get the higher AP, higher damage profile, the focused one. It's 2d3 attacks with sustained D3, with flat 3 damage, and AP -3. So if you roll hot, everything maximum, it's 72 damage. Yeah. That sounds really cool. But when you average it all out against a regular blob of Terminators, you're doing about 5.5 wounds. After everything all breaks down, because you're hitting on a 4-up. If you're in the Conqueror Imperative, then if you switch to the Protector, you can get that down to a 2-up. So I ran with the 2-up for that calculation. You're still only killing 1.5 Terminators, which is what it's built to kill.
Yep.
Because it's a 3-wound attack.
Sure.
And then our hardest hitting gun in the entire codex. Like not just hardest hitting, quote unquote, literally mathematically the most brutal gun we have is the Onager Dune Crawler's Neutron Beamer. It is our solution to heavy weapons. It is 3 times 2d6 damage on the hardest hitting gun that we have in the entire codex. When you average it out against something that's between T9 and 15 with a 4-up invuln, which is pretty common these days, you're averaging 3.4 wounds.
Yeah,
And it's like, okay, cool, you can get up to AP -5, but invuln. Who cares? Yeah. So it's like yesterday I shot it at Bruce's the Doomsday Arc? Yeah, the Doomsday Arc. For 3 turns. And effectively did no damage to it. Because he just kept healing up that average of 3 wounds that made it through. It doesn't feel good. It just doesn't work at all. And that's with Call standing next to them, with the Dune Crawler standing still, re-rolling ones. Is just like, what is not working here? It's like it's just in that sweet spot of doesn't work reliably. And it should be scary when you get 2 big guns pointed at you. I mean, I get scared with a 4-up invuln when I have 2 Rogel Dorns point at me. I go, this thing's probably going to die even with a 4-up, because just the sheer volley of attacks. But you get your neutron beamers and then 6 machine gun shots, and that's it. Thank you and good night.
Yeah.
Yeah. The arquebus and the arc rifle, similarly, instead of being flat 3, they're D3.
Oh, I hate D3 damage.
D3.
D3 damage is the worst. Just make it 2 damage.
Yeah.
Just make it
Why
2
not?
damage.
Like, I would be happy with 2 dev wounds going through on a 4+ from the arc rifle.
Or at least, like,
fine.
I don't know, D3 plus 1. Because, like, the thing is, like, because it's so D6 damage is like, well, I'm just not going to shoot that at, like, unless I have to, I'm not going to shoot D6 damage at, like, 3 wound models.
Right.
Unless I have no other option. I'm going to just shoot it at a vehicle because enough are going to get through that, like, I'll roll, like, 3 get through. It'll average out fine.
Should, yes.
But, like, if you're doing D3 damage, there's no... Because it's a D3 damage weapon is almost never something... I guess one of those is one of the anti-vehicle
4+ dev. And
that
that's
makes
in every
it a
squad
little...
of Skitarii. But it still...
Makes it a little better. I mean, if you can reroll the wounds, it makes it... I mean, if you're
Which you
getting
can't.
out of a Dune Rider.
You can reroll wounds getting out of a Dune Rider in that one specific hedge case for your combo.
You should be doing that every turn.
You can do it with exactly one model, and in order to get that, you have to basically waste the Dune Rider's bonus on a vehicle.
But anyway, we go back, like, generally you're shooting lower strength things with, you know, D3, and, like, it's... I guess unless you're shooting at 1 wound models, but then it feels like a waste. If you're shooting at 2 wound models, it's like, crap, I rolled a 1 and there's a wasted shot.
Yeah.
Or I rolled a 3 and that was more than I needed.
Yep.
I hate D3 damage.
Oh, the Transuranic Arquebus is equally frustrating because every single squad of Skitarii these days, you have this heavy precision sniper rifle.
Yeah.
Which sounds great on paper, but at maximum it's doing D3 wounds, and every character has 4 or more wounds.
I think that there are some, like, guard dudes.
Some guard
have,
dudes.
like,
I've
3
killed
wounds.
Sean's guard dudes with precision attacks.
Yeah.
I've done this.
Yeah,
I totally
yeah.
have. But when you go into any of the elite armies...
Yeah, Space Marines are all, like, at least 4.
At least 4. And then at that point, they just go, oh, that's a threat. Guess who's going to stay in the building while this squad is outside shooting?
Yeah.
Yeah, because you need true line of sight. And, like, the Radium Jezzail, though, does a flat 3. Which is nice.
Yeah.
And, you know, it did work in my Crusade games, but not in the rest of the time.
Crusade games don't count.
They really don't. And then just the last little math check. The toughest model, as well as the hardest hitting model, is the Onager Dunecrawler. And this, I double checked it when I was writing all this up because I was wondering, is the Scorpius, like, Disintegrator tougher? No, the Scorpius Disintegrator is not tougher. The Scorpius Disintegrator doesn't have an invuln save. Passively.
Yeah, but a 2-up.
So does the Dunecrawler.
Dunecrawler has a 2-up?
The Dunecrawler is T10 with a 2-up with a 4++, and if you have an Engine Seer with it, which you should, it has a 5-up Feel No Pain.
Yeah, now that the Engine Seers got cheaper.
Yeah, and it's got 11 wounds. That's it. That's which, again, that's a pretty good defensive profile, but in my experience, all it takes is just one good little volley, and then the Dunecrawler's gone.
Yep.
Because 11 wounds is not that much.
No.
And again, if you've got, you know, even one Rogel Dorn, I had one Rogel Dorn, you know, bracket it just with the main gun.
I told you about how Tesseract Vault 2-up, 4-up, T12.
Yeah.
And
sounds great on paper.
I mean, a friggin' World Eater's shooting phase one-shotted it.
Yeah.
I mean, things happen. Things happen.
They do. And it's just, in my experience, a whole year of playing this, it's just like, it's like they happen too often, I guess, is the best way I can put it.
Didn't we start this discussion off about how your Admech dice have been tested and proven to...
They are literally cursed. They are heretic. They will be cast into the forges and dropped in with the rest of the slag. Yeah. As well as my OP dice, actually. They betrayed me all day yesterday.
Yeah.
But I've still got 3 more things to go through here. My dad vibes on it, which is what started all of this.
Yes.
Like the dad hammer chat. I think of this army as fly fishing.
Explain.
It's really, really hard to do it right.
All right.
It is so hard to do it right. You are going to fail 999 times out of 1,000.
All right.
But that one time you pull it off is so sweet. It is so rewarding. It's like, you know, when you get those neutron beamers lined up and you've got Call parked there and you're aimed at like just one Chaos Knight and it just happens, right? Everything gets through. You deal like 51 damage and you just destroy this thing and it blows up and kills a third of his army. That's that trout getting hooked in midair.
Yeah.
That's what it is. And the amount of hoops you have to jump through to make that happen, it was why I equate it to fly fishing.
Sure.
Like, you need to paint these insane models. You need to learn how to field them. You need to get comfortable with the fact that you will get just blown off the board. I've been tabled probably about a third of my games.
Which is bizarre.
Right.
I can't believe that. It's so bizarre to me.
And
I've done it to you, and it's still bizarre to me.
Yeah, and it's just on paper it works, right?
Yeah. But to extend the fly fishing thing, I can totally imagine your son. You're talking to your future son. And you're like, all right, Vinny, because I still imagine him as Vinny until he has a proper name.
Yeah.
All right, Vinny, it's time to go play Admech. But Dad, I don't wanna.
You gonna learn. You're gonna suffer like I did. Yeah. Well, speaking of the kids, this is a very body horror heavy army.
Yeah.
You got
for sure.
Every single character has a floating skull right next to it with like tendrils and tubes and spikes sticking out of it. Yours is adorable.
That is my son's favorite stuffy.
Yours is adorable. These ones aren't adorable. I mean, even Paul has one that's following him, holding up a tube that's just hanging off of his body.
Is it his colostomy bag?
I don't know.
No, because he had all that removed.
Yeah, at some point. He's a giant weasel gestalt monster thing. But like we talked about the cataphrons, they're murderers and serial killers that got hacked up and turned into human tanks.
But if nobody tells you that, they're just robots.
I guess. Yeah, but it's one of those things. You look at them a little closer and you go, "This is
it's when you look close. That's when it starts to get.
Yeah. And I mean, if you get into the lore, even the Skitarii, I think one of my favorite descriptions in Forges of Mars is when Hawk, he's talking about when he bumped into some Skitarii and bought something off of them. And he said, the guy lifted up his faceplate and his flesh was all pallid and hanging off of metallic bones underneath. His eyes were just metal red glowing optics that folded under his helmet. His teeth were all filed metal. His lips retracted back and his jaw disconnected and a speaker emerged. And that's how he spoke to him. And Hawk goes, well, I guess the bloke is still human at some level.
Yeah.
Like, that's Skitarii, and I have 100 of those guys. Yeah, that's your regular infantry right there.
Just another day on the Forge World.
Exactly. Well, this was in an Arc Mechanicus flying around. Yeah, even worse. Basically a flying Forge World. So, and then the models themselves, you don't want a toddler to get a hold of these things.
No.
You don't want a 9-year-old.
The Castellan robots.
You don't want a 15-year-old to get a hold of some of these things. They're like, you can look at a rust stalker wrong and the swords will break.
Yeah, I know. I don't even like. I always ask anybody, like, if we're playing a game, and like, are you okay with me like picking up your model and handing it to you? But I won't even touch yours. I won't even touch them.
They are very intricate. It's super intricate designs. If you're, the cliche dad who loves to sit there and change the color of the pants back to blue because you don't like how they look in silver, this is the army for you. There's no two Admech armies will ever be the same on any level.
No.
Because of just the little tweaks and jabs you can do. You can kit bash all day long. Nobody cares. Nobody knows what any of our stuff is anyway. I mean,
and it's like, that piece doesn't look like it fits quite right, is basically just Admech anyway.
Yeah, just cut it off and put a new one on. Yeah, exactly. We're the orcs, but it's sanctified by the Messiah. Yeah, and
not fungus, kind of.
Kind of.
Just goo, not fungus.
Yeah, but if you really, really love the hobby of Warcraft. Or not Warcraft. What am I talking about?
The craft of Warhammer.
The craft of Warhammer. The hobby craft of Warhammer. This is a great army. It really is. They're not multi-pose models for the most part. You can multi-pose if you have some green stuff. Buy that stuff. It's just a great expressive army, I think is the best way to word it. You can really do whatever you want. And then, to round out the dad vibes, it's a steampunk army, man.
Yeah. Well,
it is a total steampunk army.
There's definitely points for that.
Yeah, you got the goggles, you got the goofy hats. I mean, my Dominus has a big tall Pope hat. You look at the Archaeopter, it looks like Da Vinci designed the damn thing.
Yep.
It's the Taraxi, same idea.
Probably they did use Da Vinci's drawings, which canonically still exist. It's amazing how much it survived.
Yeah, exactly. 40,000 years later. Yeah, So
everybody always, this is my pet peeve. 38,000 years later, excuse me, please.
Approximately,
but
years.
yeah. Well, actually, I guess it'd be 39 now, right? Because we're not even in the 40.
Isn't there a civil war happening in one of the planets over the date? I remember reading something about that.
Yeah, so who even knows? Time is hard to keep
It's technically
track of.
M41, not M40, but it's the 41st millennium. But people, nobody knows. A literal civil war is happening over calendars somewhere in the Warhammer universe.
Makes sense.
Yep. So, I mean, I can keep going, man. It's
hey, you're the tired one.
Yeah. So
we're bumping up on time.
Yeah, you can edit it down. I do have a Hopium and Copium.
All right, let's hear
bracket. So the pricing, it just feels bad. You look at any other army in the game. I mean, the fact that compared to Imperial Guard, we're expensive.
For now. Wait till Guard gets a refresh.
We'll see.
Like a full range refresh.
Yeah, not just the Cadians.
Yeah, then they'll be pricey.
Yeah, like I would happily, for almost all of my army, pay twice as many points if they had elite stats to match.
Sure.
Like no question. Skitarii veteran cohort, bring it back. I want that.
This doesn't need to be solved in terms of like making the actual boxes cheaper. Just make the models better.
Right, exactly. Like again, if everything performed on the level of the Castellans and the what are they?
That's
Cataphrons?
a cheap army.
Yeah, if you
bunch of robots.
Yeah, but you can only you have to buy them in boxes with extra data smiths.
Kit bash them into something else.
There you go. So the rules synergy. We talked a little bit about this. Mm-hmm. I was talking to Clint about it yesterday too. Everything in the Black Templar goes towards that chain sword cleaving into a heretic. Every single thing in their army does that. Mm-hmm. The Admech are so scattered. You have a movement detachment. You have a runaway and hide detachment. You have a vehicle detachment. You have, your priest detachment, but none of them have that internal synergy with each other. It all pulls a different direction.
You had rules that literally didn't work until very recently.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, completely.
Like literally didn't work.
Yeah. People would not even bother with the protector imperative.
Yeah.
You would just stay and conquer because assault is so much better.
Well, and for a few months, the Skitarii Marshal literally had no rule.
Oh, yeah. Well, he had
a rule that didn't work.
He had a rule that didn't work at all.
Yeah.
Which was the way that it was worded, they FAQ'd it so you couldn't use a strat on it.
Yep, and they forgot to update him for a while.
Yeah. Which now he's really good.
Now he's really, once they fixed
really
it,
good.
yeah, that was good.
Yeah, but yeah, that adds to the synergy argument.
But I think they're working on that part.
They're working on it. Supposedly there's some more tweaks coming next month or two.
I imagine.
Yeah, just in time for me to not get to play. So
we got to get you set up on TTS.
Either that or you just bring the tables to my house.
Yeah. Too bad you live so far.
Yeah, so do you.
True.
So the general vibe, I love weird. I would lean into it more.
I don't think you have to encourage GW that way.
I know, but I'm saying for Admech, just do it. Yeah. Make them weirder. Oh, galvanic rifles. They have something. Give them something weird. Supposedly in the lore, they convert their potential energy into kinetic energy, and I'm going, that's how a bullet works. So it's lean into something where make it so you get hit by the galvan or you get hit by the radium. That's how you get the OC effect. Make it like a depositable thing.
No, that'd be kind of cool. Like after a unit is hit,
right?
Instead of taking a battle shock test, your OC gets reduced.
Right? Yeah, something like that. Like things that are just one of a kind. Make them weird. Make them so you can play into their abilities. Because right now, you get Skitarii standing next to something. Oh, you reduce the OC. Well, kiss that Skitarii goodbye next turn.
Yeah.
If they get charged by guardsmen with fixed bayonets, they're gone. They don't stand a chance.
Yeah.
Which
is the only thing that guardsmen can kill with fixed bayonets.
Elves.
Elves.
Yeah. just
Other
into
guardsmen.
it. Chaos guardsmen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cultists.
Hormagaunts.
Yeah.
But my point being, I want more of that weird stuff. That would just be cool to see and fun to play. I mean, how screwed up would it be if someone was going, oh, why did you bring so many Skitarii? Oh, because I'm just going to shoot them at everything you put on objectives.
Yeah, I mean, it does seem like it was a miss that, like, to make it weird, all they did was make it
Look weird.
No, I mean, in terms of the rules, all they did was add tons of restrictions.
Yes.
Like things that you couldn't do.
Yeah, the Explorator Maniple that gives you a crappy Armor of Contempt.
Yeah.
Only on one objective, only when you're standing next to it.
Yeah.
You can do it for 2 for a CP. 2 objectives.
Yeah.
Yeah, so things like the Eradication Beam are like, why not have it so, oh, you affect an area, but that goes back to the template problem I've heard about.
Oh yeah,
they're not
going back. Not for 40k.
No.
You want that? Go play Old World.
Yeah. You keep trying to get me to. I think you've given up for the last couple weeks, but yeah.
I haven't played it much because I don't have the time for 2 games, unfortunately.
There you go. Yeah, things like that, you know.
Sure, yeah.
My personal,
we'd all like that.
My personal suggestion for the Sidonian Scatros, he would be an auto include if it had a little thing at the very bottom of the datasheet that said, for the purposes of shooting, treat this model as an aircraft.
Yeah.
And just give him true line of sight. And then that way it's like, oh, okay, cool. So you have a true line of sight lone op sniper. Hide your captains.
Yeah, I mean,
and
that
then
would
all of a
actually
sudden,
be kind of cool. And that would also explain why he's on stilts. Oh, what are you doing again?
It might have been me that time.
Might have been you.
But that would explain why he's on stilts, because even on his data sheet it says he stands still for sometimes months on end waiting for his quarry to enter his line of sight.
Which makes absolutely no sense. Like, why would some dude stand on like, oh, yeah. what's he doing? I don't know. Forget it.
Yeah, and it's supposedly standing among power lines and whatnot. He's got like falling girders and stuff on his base. But things like that. I just want more of that. Also, can we have grenades?
Yeah, sure. No, not even fancy grenades.
Yeah. So the just lax focus, heavy on a high mobility squishmallow army. It's okay.
Yeah.
You got to stand there and take it, and just kind of let them do whatever they want. And if you're bringing the units you need to make your army rule work, you don't have the firepower to kill anything.
Yeah. I once had a character in Necrons who gave assault and heavy, and it's like, why?
Yeah. Well, I can do a Cantic Thrallnet with my Skitarii Marshal and give assault and heavy.
So weird.
Yeah. It's what matters. And this is the detachment breakdown. It really frustrates me that the detachments don't do what they say. The Skitarii Hunter cohort is not a hunter cohort. It is a runaway and hide movement shenanigans cohort. It should be the Skitarii hide and seek cohort. The guerrilla cohort, something, because it does nothing to help you hunt down and kill specific enemies. Sure. It's all about
hunting a mammoth with spears.
Yeah, and you're going to lose a lot of dudes getting that mammoth meat.
Yeah.
But
probably how it worked.
It really is a runaway and hide detachment.
Yeah.
And if it was more of a even one strat that said, this unit gets precision.
Sure.
Just something like that.
Yeah.
That's all it would take. It's like, oh, all of a sudden, I can shoot at your blob of Necrons that has a shenaniganomancer somewhere in it, and I can just pick them off with a neutron beamer. Done. Cool. That's a problem solver right there.
Yeah.
That would be nice. The Rad Zone, I talked about this with you yesterday, should be... It has the best battle shock in the game. One-of-a-kind battle shock. Battle shocks for an entire battle round. Precisely one time at the very beginning of the game, only if your opponent chooses to be battle shocked. Otherwise, they just take mortal wounds.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Which, if you could do something like, oh, this detachment makes it so your opponent's battle shock clears during your command phase, and then you do the rad bombardment.
But now we're just talking battle shock problems in general.
Right, but again, that's how I would, if I could sit down James' workshop himself and say, this is what I would do.
Tell him to his face.
Yeah, exactly. The Explorator Maniple. Why is it called the Explorator Maniple when it's the Camp Maniple? It's literally, you pick your acquisition marker and you're supposed to sit on it in order for your detachment rules to work. wouldn't Explorator be the run away and hide or get around and move around maniple? Like, just why isn't it just a Switch name?
No, I get it. I get it.
It's a weird. It thematically it makes sense, but in practice it doesn't.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Cohort Cybernetica. Like, just give Castellans the army rule. That's what the detachment does. It gives Castellan robots the army rule. Yeah, I would rather have Cohort Cybernetica be very vehicle heavy.
No, yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree on that one.
Something where you could just say, like...
But they don't like those detachments.
Yeah, but...
They make them and then they nerf them.
Right, but I mean, in older editions, you used to be able to have an allied Imperial Knight get Admech keywords.
Yeah, that would be pretty cool.
Yeah, and I mean, that would be my fix, would be, yeah, you can ally in an Imperial Knight, give it Imperial or Adeptus Mechanicus keywords and Doctrine Imperatives. Done.
Yeah.
Now you've got a scary detachment because you're going to be super buffing this knight who's going to be wandering around. And then Data Psalm, I don't even know where to begin. That just needs to be better.
They got to prey on it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and then I guess closing thought. Any questions or you even picking my brain as I've gone
I've been lobotomized.
Yeah,
I've been lobotomized by all this Admech.
Yeah, that's how I feel.
Yeah, no, I mean, kudos to you though, that you've been running them for a year nonstop, taking all the lumps.
Hey, one of these days the Messiah will smile on us again.
One of these days.
Yeah. So my closing thoughts are, I'm happy with my choice, but I would not recommend it to anyone unless you are virulently stubborn and absolutely love sci-fi.
Yep. You
have to really, really love sci-fi.
No, I am shocked that you are still playing Warhammer 40K.
Hey, it's been a good time. Yeah,
it's been a great time.
It, like you said, it's Warhammer on hard mode.
Yep.
This is one of those like lower bracket armies that you were saying, pick the bad ones when you start, and your day in the sun will arrive.
Yeah.
And it's to the point where, I mean, like I played 3 games yesterday. I scored 77, 70, and 86 points, and I lost those first 2 games.
Yeah.
I made my opponents work for it. Like if I'd had a little bit better rolling or gotten a better secondary, I probably would have done very well.
You'll get there.
It's just
get there.
A matter of getting there.
I think you're going to be taking a bit of a break, and once you're done, once you're back from that break, I think a little bit of a reboot, turn it off, turn it on again.
Yeah, exactly.
You'll be ready to rock.
Yeah. Well, and my personal final thought is, I'm still having fun because I like a hard won fight.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoy that. Like I mentioned Titanfall 2. I have a disgusting amount of hours in Titanfall 2 because I liked going fast and I wanted to get good at it. Yeah. And once you're good at it and you're, flying by calling down a Titan while your blue plate specialing a guy out of the air with your, what is it? The grenade launcher.
Yeah. Well, someday, except without grenades.
Yeah, without grenades.
You'll be doing that to all of your opponents.
Yeah. I'll be the scary guy in green.
Yeah.
Little green men from Mars.
As long as you don't bring your sensor to the tournaments. All right. Well, thank you so much, Bill, for joining us and giving us your thoughts, convincing everyone out there that they really should.
Please buy them.
Play Admech.
I want more model.
And so we have a Discord. I'll put the link in the description. Bill is on there if you want to ask him any questions. And please do all the YouTube things, liking, commenting, subscribing. It does actually make a difference. I have paid attention to the stats on it. And join us next time. Thank you so much. Good night.
To the Messiah.
I don't know how much praise he deserves.